In this episode, we talk about grinding ahead of time with a burr grinder or grinding fresh with a blade grinder. What's going on, everyone? Kendon and Dennis here at Victrola in our lab. We've got a two-part question for you today from Mark Y on Facebook. He says, I have a two-part question. That's how I knew that it was a two-part question. One, is it better to pre-grind and use a very good grinder like a burr grinder, or use a poor grinder like a blade grinder at the source? So pre-grind good, well, pre-grind well, or grind fresh with a less than optimal grinder. Second part is if you must pre-grind, what method of brewing is preferred to keep the quality of coffee? So there's a lot going on here, and so we're going to break it down a little bit for this.
Yeah. So, excellent question, and something a lot of people run into that situation.
Right.
So, just real quick, burr grinder versus blade grinder. A blade grinder, the old kind of spice mill sort of deal.
Yeah, you push.
We all had one of those at some point or another. It's got a rotating blade. It chops the coffee seeds, the beans up. They flop around in there and get chopped to bits every time.
Right. So it's not very consistent.
Not consistent at all, and it's really difficult to regulate the consistency.
Yeah.
So that is why when we say, that's why we say a blade grinder is not optimal, because you don't have any control over the size of the particles necessarily, or the uniformity of the size. You want a really small standard deviation.
Yeah.
But and then on the other end, the burr grinder, two burrs, one spins, one stays in place, and the coffee seeds just pass through that one time, so you get very even grinding. You're not building up a lot of heat. It is the preferred. It's the only way to get consistency.
Yeah, exactly.
Between the two. So, but they're also more expensive.
Yeah, that's true.
Although anymore that gap is shrinking.
That is true, but you're not gonna find one for $15,
right?
It's that sort of thing.
Not new.
Yeah.
So into the question there. Essentially, what we're looking at here is freshness versus a really dialed-in grind. And once you grind the coffee, inside that seed are all these volatile aromatics that, if you're keeping your coffee stored whole bean in a cool, dry place, those volatiles and CO2 and stuff are escaping, but they're escaping slowly.
Right.
Once you compromise the structure of that seed by grinding it, you immediately start releasing those volatiles at a very fast rate, in a very, very fast rate.
Right.
So essentially, within hours of you grinding that coffee, those volatiles have left the building, so to speak.
Right.
Whereas on the other hand, if you're brewing at home and using a blade grinder or a grinder that's not as great, you're retaining that freshness, but you may be getting an uneven brew. You may be getting
you have some large particles, some small part. Yeah.
And so you get a brew that's sort of partly over extracted, partly under extracted, and that sort of deal.
Right.
So again, here you're kind of looking at trade-off in your own personal enjoyment of the coffee, and that's why at home brewing, ultimately the question is which one do you enjoy?
Right.
Do you enjoy better?
Right.
I personally, if I'm brewing at home, when I used to brew at home with a blade grinder way back in the day, and was doing French press, I definitely grind it fresh, because I want those volatiles and I want that expression. And French press is fairly forgiving with that kind of stuff. But again, it's not something where the coffee's going to be spoiled or anything. But you are, once you grind that coffee, there's no way of keeping
the timer's ticking.
They're gone. So.
So we need to decide, right? Yeah. We need to decide what is more important in this case. Like, if I can do it fresh and I'm going to do French press, for example, because it's forgiving, I might grind it fresh. But if I maybe don't even have a grinder there at all, grinding it ahead of time very well, you're trading off losing some of the the real nuance in the coffee, but you are grinding it ahead of time.
Yeah, and again, when you are brewing at home, you are you're making decisions that about convenience, about what's your budget for your home brew system, and all of that sort of stuff. And so if choosing something that you are ultimately happy with and that is giving you a cup of coffee that is pleasing to you, that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
But they're
Here's maybe some practical examples. If, for example, I was going to grind in the morning and take it into the office, and I have to leave my house at 7, and I might have this cup of coffee at 9 or 10. I think grinding it at home, well, with my good Burr grinder, for example, would be a good. What I would do personally is I would grind it well at home, and then 2 hours later, I've got a pretty good cup of coffee. Not as stellar as if I would have made it right fresh, but great. If I am not going to be able to, either use a blade grinder or it's going to go a week between grinds, then I would probably use a blade grinder and do French press. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. It's kind of those are sort of the things that you're trading off in those two situations.
Yeah.
And
absolute freshness or consistency.
Yeah. And these, yeah. So that's.
I think we can move on from that. Hopefully that'll make sense. You have to kind of decide for yourself what's going to be the important thing for that particular cup, because if you can plan ahead for it, that's probably the best thing that you can do is what's going to be best for you. The second part was if you must pre-grind, what method, like for camping or a hotel room examples, what method of brewing is preferred to keep the quality of coffee? So that's pretty subjective, and it's really, once again, we say it a lot, is what's going to be enjoyable for you in the cup. Some examples is, like, if you can take a French press with you, if you have like a stainless French press that's not going to break in your bag in the hotel room, and you can get hot enough water, sure, do that. Or bring an AeroPress or something like that. If you want to bring your whole setup, your whole pour-over setup while you're camping, do that. That's fine.
Yeah, that's kind of that deal where, again, if you have to pre-grind the coffee and then because you're going on a trip, you're going camping, you're on the road, whatever that is. That one I'd probably choose the method that was easiest to move along with me.
Yeah.
If I was out backpacking, I'd probably do an AeroPress or something like that because it's real. I like.
Would you pre-grind?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I were pre-grinding and going camping, I would choose a method that fit my mode of travel.
Right.
Yeah.
Jay, though, who works with us here, we were just talking about this earlier, brings up like a whole setup, like a hand grinder and a little stove kettle thing, and does the whole thing, measure, scale, all of it at altitude, all of it, because that's what he wants to do, and it's been fantastic.
And that's whatever gives you that cup of coffee you want. I've got bad knees, so I can't carry all that stuff. More power to you.
Yeah, right. So it's really weighing what is going to be most valuable to you. A fantastic, excellent level of coffee, you're going to have to bring some kit with you. If you would just like to pack light, then know that it's not going to be. It's going to be a great a good cup of coffee, but it's not going to be. It's not going to win a brew competition. If you're pre-grinding that sort of thing.
The same rules always apply. It's those ideal brew parameters and grinding fresh and coffee storage and all of this. And if you've got to make adjustments away from that, it just, you just know what's going to happen to the coffee.
And you know your context if you're camping or if you're in a hotel room or if you're in your house. You know the context. So anyway, Mark, I hope that helps. Keep asking questions. We love to help you get more out of your coffee. Hopefully this is useful for us. Leave a comment down below and ask another question. But for now, we'll see you later. With a Burr grinder? Nope. I'll do it again. I'm getting better every time, Dennis.